Okay, so Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, the rematch that happened this weekend, absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed the fight, and for me personally, being a Tyson Fury fan and also a British boxing fan, it's such a relief to have two heavyweights hold all the championships. I mean, 4 months ago we had Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder holding the gold, two Americans, and in the span of 4 months we've seen a change from two Americans to two British fighters hold the top titles in the division, and I couldn't be more happier. This is one of the greatest fights I've seen, absolute masterclass from Fury, and a lot of people were doubting him, especially because he changed his trainer. He had his big cut that he had in his last fight, and with Deontay Wilder he has that knockout power. He's knocked out every opponent he's been against apart from Tyson Fury, and even though he didn't knock out Tyson Fury, he still knocked him down twice in the first fight. And for me personally, the first fight was amazing, the second fight was amazing, the third fight is probably going to be amazing as well, because that is a huge possibility that could be happening. But basically what I'm going to be talking about is the fight itself and the possibility for Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury going forward from this fight. Let's talk about the first fight. First fight ended in a controversial draw. You know, Tyson, if you are a big fan of boxing and know how boxing is scored, even if you're not a big fan of boxing, I think you would understand that Tyson Fury was almost robbed of a victory. You could make a good statement that Deontay Wilder should have won in that 12th round and the 10 count was too long, but at the end of the day, Tyson Fury, from where he came from, he was almost robbed of that comeback moment. So then he goes on to have two fights. He goes on to fight Tom Schwartz, who he batters in 2 rounds, and then Otto Warlin, who gives him a really devastating cut. But, you know, he still managed to win the fight. Even watching a fight that was stopped with a similar cut in Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, it did seem like, you know, refs have the choice whether or not to stop that fight, and Tyson just kept going. I think it was pretty obvious that Tyson was winning that fight anyway, so there was no reason for the ref to stop it, even though it was a bad cut. And even me thinking about this possible fight and how Deontay Wilder is a big puncher, I had a lot of nerves going into this fight, especially because of what Deontay Wilder managed to do in 2019. He starts off the great year knocking out his opponent, his first opponent of the year, in the first round, and then he gets a rematch with Luis Ortiz, someone who a lot of people said gave him a bit of trouble in the first fight they faced each other. And Deontay Wilder managed to show that he can knock someone clean out with just one punch. But a lot of people are mentioning in that fight that Ortiz was pretty much winning that fight until the punch happened. I'd probably give Deontay Wilder 2 of the rounds that, you know, the fight was in, and one of those rounds would be the round where he knocks down Luis Ortiz. But going into this rematch, it was almost like you couldn't settle on one person decisively. It was a toss-up, and I felt like with Deontay Wilder having that knockout power from the first round to the 12th round, he had a huge possibility of knocking down Fury. But you've also got to remember that Fury was 6 months out of his big weight loss, depression and all of this in the first fight. And with the second fight, he now had a stable camp and was able to go out there and, you know, fight a man who had this scary knockout power and treat him like he was a bum, like he was a dosser, as Tyson Fury would say. And he just made him a mockery. And credit to Deontay Wilder, he got up from multiple shots. The first round, Tyson Fury won. Second round, I'd probably even edge it to Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder, with that knockout power, it did scare me when he was chucking some straight right hands to Fury, but Fury just ate it. And then the third round happens, and Fury manages to knock him down with a clean shot. And that's what heavyweight boxing's all about. And really, that shot took a toll on the whole fight, because after that shot, you know, Deontay Wilder's legs went, he had a cut inside his ear, and it almost just went from bad to worse for Deontay Wilder, and he was losing the fight and losing each of the rounds. Then we come to round 5, where Deontay Wilder gets knocked down again, but also Tyson Fury gets a deduction of points, which I didn't really understand. I've rewatched the fight. Apparently he chucked quite an illegal shot to the body, but anyway, on to the finish. Deontay Wilder gets finished in the 7th round by his team chucking in the towel, and after the fight we learned that the main coach didn't agree with what the assistant coach did, because the assistant coach basically chucked in the towel. And Deontay Wilder, you can tell that he wanted to keep going. He's got heart. Like, we can't discredit that. Deontay Wilder's got heart, and you could say how he's just a fighter and he has knockout power and he doesn't have a plan B. It's always plan A with Deontay Wilder, and that's to knock someone out. But Deontay Wilder, you know, he's undefeated, so you can't really discredit him. And that was the first time he was knocked down since 2010. And now it sets up the big fight between Fury and Joshua. Now, for anyone who is watching this, I hate to burst the bubble, but I do not see this happening straight away. I don't see this happening as their next fight. And the main reason for that is Deontay Wilder. He has a rematch clause with Tyson Fury, and something that I think he is going to consider, and I think he is going to have that immediate rematch. However, Anthony Joshua is going into negotiations with the IBF mandatory in Kubrat Pulev, and that's apparently scheduled for June. So hopefully we can get the rematch between Wilder and Fury, the third fight. I feel like if Deontay Wilder really wants to prove himself as one of the greatest heavyweights, he has to beat Fury, and this is an opportunity for him to do that. But Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, I'm hoping it happens at the end of the year. If Pulev manages to create an upset against Joshua, or Deontay Wilder manages to win the trilogy, we could really see that fight happening in 2021, which I personally don't want to see, because these fights are getting pushed aside so long. And there's also another thing to consider. Alexander Usyk is the mandatory WBA, I believe, or WBO mandatory champion, mandatory for Anthony Joshua's title, so that's also something to consider as well. However, I do see this fight happening hopefully November time this year. I know that does seem long, but you know, if we can get it this year, then I'm completely fine with that. But anyway, who do you think is going to win against Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury? So my opinion is that Fury will beat Anthony Joshua if it does come to blows. And that's not me discrediting Anthony Joshua, but I believe if Joshua wants to go down as the best heavyweight in his division, he has to beat Tyson Fury, who is number 1 in my opinion. And even going into the fight with Deontay Wilder, I felt like he had a huge claim of saying he is the number 1 heavyweight. But in order for Fury to really fully cement himself, I feel like he has to beat Anthony Joshua. Fury has 3 more fights on his contract apparently, and I see those 3 fights being Deontay Wilder, the trilogy, and then Anthony Joshua, and then hopefully if he does beat Anthony Joshua, we'll get a rematch. I do see that happening. I do see a rematch clause being added to the contract when that fight does come to blows. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Peace.